we need to do more, and the citizens need to do more. You need to just, hold our politicians' feet to the fire. In order for these technologies to gain any traction in the marketplace and to be introduced into our society, there needs to be what's known as an enabling field. That requires the political will to seed them.
Told us about unachievable targets for purely political purposes.
What do your targets have to do with the tar sands?
These targets have to do with all Canadians. Beyond the 20% by 2020, there's 50, 60, up to 70% by 2050. We're working on the international stage with the major emitters.
So you're really doing nothing on the tar sands, is what I'm hearing.
What we're doing is globally and locally, we're working hard on the environment.
To be young and aware is to see old people from the House of Commons to Toronto's Bay Street, from newspaper editorial desks to corporate boardrooms, stalling action on every front, spouting platitudes about balance, committing themselves wholeheartedly to actions to be undertaken long after they've retired and died.
Commitments that are made are commitments that we expect to fulfill, not airy, pie-in-the-sky, Kyoto-type commitments that were made by the previous Liberal administration.
To nearly a chorus of credible voices from doctors and scientists to retired generals and former bankers, warning that to lose this fight is to lose everything that makes our world livable and gives us future hope.
I'm really concerned about this new trend I'm seeing in the media just the last few days of deniability on the tar sands, the deniability tactic that is very popular with the Conservatives. Just say it isn't so often enough and loud enough and maybe some people will begin to believe you. But I've heard the head of the Canadian Petroleum Association saying, oh, well, it's really not as dirty as they say it is. And people from your government have been saying those kinds of things in the last few days. What is this about? We know it's dirty. We know people are dying up there. We've seen the pictures of the sludge lakes, of the tailings.
To be told that the world's scientists are participating in a giant hoax. To be chided for not understanding how the real world works. To be warned that doing the right thing will bankrupt us. And to be told that not wanting to melt ice caps and circle the equator and deserts makes you too radical to take seriously. To be young and aware is to know that you're being lied to.
In your description of what the government's doing, you called the government's plans with regards to climate change both ambitious and progressive. Those are words I heard, and I'm just wondering how that's so when the international media and foreign governments and foreign groups are decrying Canada's actions and calling us fossils. If other governments and other groups and other countries think we can do better, why don't we?
I guess it depends on who you speak to.
You are part of 5,400 actions occurring around the globe.
You speak to Premier Wen in China.
I noted on your visit to China and your comments on Canada leading, offering a lead to China on improving their environmental standards. What it sounded like to me, though, was that you were comparing our standards to Chinese standards, and in that we're doing way better than them, which I do hope we are. But what I would like to see is that Canada would be comparing itself to the leaders in environmental action and sustainable action. And that's what I'd like to hear from you on these things, is how we compare to the people and the countries that are at the cutting edge of these things.
Wave, tidal, offshore wind, ocean thermal, that are emerging worldwide, and you can see that the time is now for innovations.
To know that a bright green future is possible, and that we can reimagine the world, rebuild our cities, redesign our lives, and retool our factories, distribute innovations creatively, and all live in a world that is not only better than the alternative, but much better than the world we have now.
So there's a full suite of developing proposals that will be informed by the Copenhagen conference. Our minister is there now, he's been there for over a week, and our Prime Minister will be joining him. So I'm looking forward to some good, innovative ways that we can continue as Canadians to be world leaders both in terms of a sustainable environmental policy and achievable economic goals.
To be young and aware is to suspect that, in the end, the debate about climate change, climate action, isn't about substance, but about rich old men trying to squeeze every last dollar, euro, and yen from their investments in outdated industries.
Jason Kenney attended a meeting at Whistler with me, and as he was leaving, he was challenged by the mayor of Whistler, who was also very committed to the environment, Ken Nelman. And Minister Kenney said, "Do you realize that I have to get security around me in Calgary at that time, because the Conservative government was dismantling some of the tax credits that were formerly available to industrialists in the petroleum industry." And they were very unhappy with him.
There are dozens and dozens of renewable technology, renewable energy technologies that are emerging worldwide today and in the past 12, 15 years that I've known about them. And there has been vested interest interference that has stalled them.
I'm embarrassed that Canada is one of the worst offenders on the planet. And I'm particularly embarrassed that the federal government in Canada has behaved most irresponsibly.
And the major challenge of the day is the environmental one. And the environmental one is top of mind for this government. That's why we have Minister Prentice, who's been in Copenhagen for the last several days with his department officials, why the Prime Minister is going to be there with him. And we will continue to look for ways that we can produce economic results for Canadians who need to pull out of this world recession that was caused by no made in Canada reasons, and produce a sustainable environment.
We are simply ignoring all of the continuing damage we have perpetrated on this planet for the last 20 years with full knowledge and foresight into what we were doing.
At 388 parts per million and rising, we are growing away from, not towards, increased security, safety, and well-being.
We are still pretending we can make money and continue to pollute the planet, and there are no consequences. There are consequences.
Is begin to see our elders as cannibals with golf clubs. Myself, I'm not worried. I'm not worried that my generation will grow radical, but that they grow despondent, because what the world needs now, more than ever, is what our generation has always given most, our optimism.
We have to move from a place of despair or denial into a place of courage and willingness to change and move forward with hope and strength in each other.
So if nothing else happens in Copenhagen, I pray that all of you who have ears and a voice and a conscience will at least say this to the world's youth. Your fight is ours too. Don't give up. Petition for John Weston, Standing Together for 350, and it's just to stand together to create a 350 parts per million of CO2 in the world. And we are committed to taking action now in our lives and in our communities. And we are ready for ambitious, fair, and binding global climate policies. We call on Canadian and world leaders to seize the opportunity and to ensure that these are grounded in the latest science and strong enough to get us back to the 350 part per million. John Weston, will you accept the petition?
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you for your passion.
Thank you.
I think that the hope of the future is people like you who will stand in front of a large group of people and express your heartfelt views. And I'm very pleased to accept the petition. We're a million strong tonight. We're a million strong tonight. We're a million strong tonight. We're 3.
Thank you.